I'll be too late to see if they're able to survive. If they can pull out a win against all odds against Elements today, would definitely send a statement their way. But as it stands, in the picks and bans here, we've got some questions that need answering. So Vladimir banned away, and so is the Evelyn.
This is actually an interesting development in terms of jungle pools. Usually we saw Rek'Sai and Gragas get hit, and then people resort to off-meta junglers like Evelyn, like Nidalee, but Copenhagen Wolves, they say, hey, Dexter, you're Evelyn, played it twice last week, let's ban it out, put you back on the conventional Gragas and the Rek'Sai. Elements respond with Shook, you're a notorious Nidalee player at times, so we banned that one out instead, and we just force you on predictable champions. Sivir gets banned out like she should. Kalista, obviously picked up force for Copenhagen Wolves. They have to rely on Freeze to carry, but slightly nerfed. Kalista could actually see a Tristana from tabs. He is a player that could actually play that champion pretty well. A tribute to the past from JWoww.
Yeah, I think you're definitely right on the money with that one. And you know, speaking of the past, if there's any team that knows Shook and knows how to shut him down, it will be Elements.
At the same time, if there's any jungler that knows Froggen,
that's true.
It should be Shook.
Well, let's see what he decides to take here. The Rek'Sai locked in for Dexter, and Nif on that Thresh. The Kalista Thresh yo-yo lane will not happen this game. The Wolves, as the timer ticks over to them, what are they going to take? The Gragas should be a no-brainer for Shook, but then again, he has gone for some wackier stuff as well.
Yeah, he chose to play Rengar when some other picks were open in the past already, so we go for, looks like he's going for the Lee Sin. Copenhagen Wolves playing the Morgana Kalista, incredibly safe lane, in addition to being double ranged, having the binding, you have the Black Shield. Just keep your carry alive. I like the Rek'Sai pickup for a team that is playing against a weaker strategic team, because the massive map mobility that the Rek'Sai brings to the table should be enough to out-rotate, and that's what Elements need to look at. They don't need to beat the Wolves in sheer individual skill, in my opinion. I would rather see them take the approach of holistically outplaying than macro play, because that's what they need to bring to the table against teams that they simply can't outplay individually. Yes, if they win by raw mechanics, it will not learn them or teach them anything for the remaining games coming up, especially against Fnatic.
Very true indeed. So, they've gone ahead and taken the Rumble and the Corki. So these are also some fairly safe choices, but we don't know what the top lane is necessarily for Lenny. However, in his first couple weeks in the LCS, we haven't seen anything particularly big out of the Copenhagen Wolves new top.
Yeah, and it's very hard for Lenny to find an opening here, because I don't believe Shen actually plays too well into the Rumble. And the new Rumble, the new build should work well. However, Elements is telegraphing their 5th pick in the mid lane here, likely because they want some 80 damage. So they have an AP top laner, a hybrid mixed 80 carry, so they definitely want like a Jace or a Varus in the mid lane, else they're going pretty heavy on the magic side of things. And Copenhagen Wolves going back to their roots, a Zeron Soren, he can definitely play that champion. And it does look like the Shen matchup will come out, so I want to see if Elements is going to take that. On paper, they're better off lane swapping already, even without seeing what Froggen picks here in that last pick, which it turns out to be that Varus. They want a lane swap, in my opinion. Rumble performs so well on low resources. You want to keep that Shen down so he can't teleport across the map. You don't want to give Kalista Morgana a laning phase. Thresh Corki has an okay lane, but definitely loses it. And Corki in a solo lane top is what you want. Get that early power spike to level 6, hit Triforce, and then start grouping around the map.
And then it works well with synergizing with that Rumble. On top of it, they'll also have some quality poke here. Not just the Corki, the Varus, as you said.
Yep. It
does go locked in for Froggen. And we'll see how that mid lane matchup goes. It will be a tough one for Soren. He's going to have to get right up and close and personal to Froggen to make a difference.
Yeah, now last week we saw tabs with questionable positioning at times. Some very aggressive flashes that sometimes worked out, sometimes didn't on the Twitch. This time he has a gap closer built into that Corki, and he has another Lantern on demand from Nif coming out here. Honestly, I like Elements' draft. I think it fits the meta well. I think the damage is distributed evenly. They have 1.5 80 damage in the Varus and the Corki, 1.5 magic damage in the Rumble and the Corki then again. So, well, even spaced out draft. And then they have a front line with the Thresh and the Rek'Sai. So good spaced draft. The Wolves, they'll need to snowball. Shook will need to find one of those key opening first plots that he always gets for the Wolves. And then they need to see, have they improved their shot calling? Because it was dire last week.
Yes, it was. Very, very dire indeed. But it's a new game. It's a new week. Why don't you guys tell us what you think about it? Hashtag CW win or hashtag EL win. Will the Wolves avoid themselves to be in the relegation spot, or will Elements be the ones who move themselves closer to the playoffs? To find out as we're loading up right now onto the Rift.
So TLDR, if you zone out during champ select, Elements want to lane swap. For a multitude of reasons, Copenhagen Wolves don't want to. They want the standard lanes. Eventually, they want the pressure on the Kalista side. They want her Freeze to start snowballing on that champion. Still very strong. A minor nerf. But it wouldn't affect this matchup all too much, in my opinion.
So far, we've seen a lot of that Kalista since we've started it. But now, as level 1 unfolds, let's go ahead and hear from Tabs how it's not easy going up against an opponent that's got nothing left to lose.
There's a lot of pressure on playing against like the bottom team. So it actually gives you even a bit of an advantage. Like you have like the mental game over them because they're so pressured to have to win against you. Whereas you're pretty much lost anyway. You can't really do much about it. So you have a lot more freedom to try out crazy things.
Oh, sorry, gotta cut you off there, Tabs, as Nif wandered too close to the action.
Where's
the
the
heal
ignite?
comes out. No ignites and no kill.
If Cass ignited, that's 1-2 ticks, then the next damage proc from Lee Sin Q would have done more damage. He would have been reduced in half. The map checks out. I've just ran it in my head. Nif would have been dead. Big mistake by the Wolves. I mean, it doesn't get easier than this. He face checks you. You can even hold that binding a quarter of a second longer because he'll face check, then get damaged and be like, what the hell is going on? And Wolves, we should have taken the first one.
Missed a golden opportunity, just barely. As it stands,
all right, Cass,
let's just use that one heal though.
For me, he has the exact cooldown of Ignite. It's 189 seconds. So in the next 3 minutes, he has to use that Ignite to get a big kill that is worth more than the potential first blood he could have gotten now.
These guys last met in week number 3, by the way. And remember, this is one of the Wolves' few wins. They managed to take down Elements. It was a very quick game, just about 26 minutes. It's a very different Wolves than we saw from that last time, and I would like to think of very different Elements as well, as the lane swap you did so accurately predict is coming into play here.
Yeah, Elements take the camp. Lenny is early in the lane. This is the way SK used to like to play the laning phases. It doesn't work out well because it sets you up for an easy 4v0 dive. Because the Wolves, okay, they're caught off guard. They didn't expect the lane swap for whatever reason. They don't have the double jungle to take countermeasures. Lenny is behind right now. He's zoned. He'll have to start a camp. Let's see how quickly Dexter and JWoww are going to move over and what's going to happen on the bottom side of the map. It's definitely advantage already from Elements because they caught Lenny by surprise and he's wandering around alone in his weak jungle.
Missed out by JWoww. Just a moment. A couple of harpoons come out that way. Blue buff now going over to Dexter and JWoww, but it's a slow one, and if Lenny gets some backup anytime soon, it probably isn't going to happen as Cass and Shook are way down on this bottom side, and Soren's not interested in coming. It's going to go over to Dexter.
So both these teams are going to do the exact same thing. Lenny could go for a bit of a gank in the mid lane, but he's level 1, walking all the way from top to bot. No double jungling. So if after this lane swap, the lanes even out again, JWoww will have a full level and a half advantage, if not more. And this is the traditional style that we see over in North America as well. 3 people push this tower. It's no longer 4v0. They just send the Dexter back to the jungle to do jungle on his own side. Usually they switch up the sides. Jungle goes back to the safer side of things. But they have full vision of where the Wolves are. Only Shook is missing. He's doing the same thing, but there's an experience discrepancy right now, a very big one. Shook is slightly ahead probably of Dexter, but Lenny is super far behind.
And we did mention that one of the keys of this game for Elements is keeping that Shen from getting ahead. We saw what could happen so well when H2K's Otoamne was able to do the same thing to Lenny here, or same thing rather to his opposing team.
Yeah, and this is what you want to do if your top laner already gets ahead in the initial state of lane swap. You want to bounce that wave back, whereas previously AD carries were taking that wave afterwards. Now it's the top laners. JWoww has some math issues here.
He got it eventually.
Because the minions die, towers are harder to kill. If you wonder why that happens to you at home, when minions die, towers become harder to kill because when a minion enters the area of a tower, the tower drops in armor and it's way easier to take it down. Now that wasn't the case. JWoww almost had a very free trip to base. Let's look at Soren playing at Azir.
His win rate hasn't been the hugest, and we've seen less and less Azirs as the poke has become more of the norm, frogging on that Varus, his opponent. But Soren, I feel like this isn't just Azir that he's had a lot of these troubles on as well.
Yeah, but 40% is probably one of the higher win rates for him as
That's true.
All the way in the bottom
That's
of the
true.
table.
He's been able to do a little bit more on that champion than some others. And, hopefully for the Wolves, they're hoping that that trend will continue here.
Elements with a bit of an adaptation. Dexter is shadowing the top side of the map, facilitating that farm from JWoww. They just don't want him to get dove. So they're sending Nif over, and they're leaving Corki in the 1v1 in the bottom. This is what you like in lane swap. Corki is one of the carries that scales incredibly well with levels. Once they hit that level 6 for the Rocket, later on the level 11 This phosphorus bomb scales so well. Corki is incredibly good at zoning a top laner that is behind too, off the wave, because he has that max range. Gap closer, he's level 4, Lenny's level 3. But I would have liked Elements to still send JWoww in this lane instead. Yes, Corki gets ahead, but Tabs is a little scared, no vision. So he's not bullying Lenny at all. Lenny's just getting a massive wave for himself, and this could spell some disaster for Elements. A poor strategic read. He's even allowed to freeze this lane, so unless Tabs is going to do something about it, Elements are losing their advantage.
Yeah, Wolves are looking for the top side while it's all happening as well. JWoww, Nip, and Dexter looking to defend this one, but you're right. Lenny's getting this solo XP. He's getting himself caught back up. He's actually beating JWoww in farm at the moment. There's no contest here, with only the Corki sitting just outside of range of the minions.
Yeah, and this is the game of experience in lane swaps. Yes, the gold is slightly ahead of the Wolves. Cost is only level 2, Nif level 4, so Elements funneling a lot of power in your support. Just going for a bit of a fight here.
Uh-oh,
That's the wrong way, Tabs.
He's gonna get taunted up. In comes Shook, the teleport, but it might be too late as JWoww flame spitters on. They just keep their attention turned to Tabs. The harpoon wasn't gonna get intercepted, and that's first blood over to Lenny. Some even more experience falling right into his pocket, and Shook and Lenny should have enough power to take down JWoww, but Froggen is here, and he manages to get one. Revenge there for Elements.
Shook still has flash. Should have not died. Tabs should have never gotten taunted and then flashed. He should have flashed the taunt. So big misplays on both sides here, both strategically and mechanically. And if Elements want to, crawl out of their bottom place position, they need to play better than they're doing right now.
Just gonna get bound under the tower. These spears sticking out of him. Freeze and Cass are doing a fantastic job at keeping the pressure on against only the support now that Tabs has had to take a long trip up here. This game has kind of been turned on its head from what we thought at the very beginning.
Yeah, very peculiar lane swap. If after lane swap you turn out with your support being one of the higher levels in the game, normally you've done something wrong. If you watch games over in Korea, for example, if you watch SK Telecom, Wolf will very often be level 2 when Bang hits 6. Nif, he's level 5 when Taps is 5. So very, very different approach. That doesn't mean it's wrong, but it means it's worth investigating. And so far, what I've seen from Elements, I feel they've made a couple of mistakes in where they prioritize their members, their pressure. They had the advantage on Lenny, key matchup, but now he is 28 CS to 28 on JWoww. He is level 5, JWoww is level 5, so everything is even Stevens yet again.
For the Wolves, that's about as good as you can expect things. They've not had the greatest string of games, and by any means, yes, they were able to take one of Elements the last time they met. Maybe they're the kryptonite for this team, but so far, putting any wins on the board is going to be happy for them.
It was good, however, to see Froggen roam. This is something he, in the past, was criticized for. Always just defaulting to the racing with Wolves instead of leaving his mid lane to roam. He's using that pressure from Varus into the Azir matchup to roam down bot. Freeze is still locked down, so he's not carrying the Wolves just yet. He's waiting for some more farm. So far, Elements are still in control of this matchup, but Shooks, he needs to snowball, and he's the one that always has 100% or 90% kill participation in these matches. Now JWoww still has his flash, so he has to respect his gank.
Meanwhile, though, JWoww might get baited a little bit forward. He's going to go up through the minions and kick JWoww back. Throws down the equalizer, try and cover his tracks. He's got the flash, he will use it, but so will Shook. Goes in, secures the kill. Dexter's too late. Goes in for the flash, though. Queen's Wrath and safeguard over
Froggen's
Lenny.
coming.
Froggen's coming in. There's the arrow. Can it pierce? Looking for Shook. Not going to connect, but he's now going the wrong way. Going to run right into the waiting arms of Nif. The lantern plays. Shook. This time, no flash. He goes down. A 1-for-1 yet again.
Good communication by Elements. Dexter's, he was aware that he could play super aggressively because he had the backup coming. However, JWoww still got off guard, and that was a relatively telegraphed gank because obviously you have to put yourself in the position of the enemy jungler. Is he going to go top lane? No. Corki and Thresh pushed out the lane. They were basing. No gank opportunity there. Is he going to go for the Varus? No, because he's completely controlling Soren, and there's a lot of wards around the mid lane. So where does he go next? Out of his own jungle or bot lane? JWoww found himself exposed on that side lane. Dexter was there, but a little bit too late. However, good roam again from Froggen. He is the cornerstone of Elements, traditionally, and especially this game.
And he'll grab himself a well-earned blue buff. Thanks to the help of Dexter, 2-0, as he's been in the right place at the right time for Elements counteracts. Freeze and Jesuicas are going to polish off this tower up in the top. Should take them just a few moments more. They're actually going to take their time as the mini wave wasn't quite up in the range they need. But Elements, meanwhile, are looking to do the same on the bottom. And Lenny, without backup, is going to have to give this up.
Yeah, Tabs level 6. You have the CC from Nif. extra damage, and Shen can always stand united to his teammates, but nobody can come to the Shen to help. So what you definitely have to do when you play against a double global, a teleport, and a stand united is you just move towards that target, because he can't get any help from his team. You get him down, then you move on to the teammates. And you ignore freeze. You gave him Kalista, and this is... Elements is doing what Giants failed to do in the first game. They gave away Kalista, but they don't play it. They don't care about it. They just ignore it. They lane swap away from it, and they keep missing the lane. Say, okay, we don't play against this Kalista freeze. Maybe a very strong champion, but we don't care. We just go for these objectives, this map control, and taking a dragon.
That's much earlier than they normally are, and that is because of the way they built this comp. Remember, we always were talking about Elements being the team that's all about the late game, all about the late game. That's changed for them. We're seeing some evolution. This composition especially, they want to group and fight, and they're going to need every buff they can get.
Yeah, Froggen definitely has to hold into his flash, because otherwise Soren can just sweep in for the Shurima shuffle.
Ooh. If he doesn't die first.
Yeah, this is Varus with a blue buff. Every couple seconds, arrow comes out. You have to dodge it. Take a look.
There's another hail. Oh, man. Yeah, Soren can't get anywhere near that right now. And he is going to have to preserve his blue buff by going back to base. Meanwhile, Froggen is going to be joined by Nif and Tabs as they look to polish off this mid tower. Cass is there to defend, but will he be enough? It doesn't look like it.
Yeah, and this is why you can never look at just CS alone or gold alone to see how well a game is going. Because Soren is only 3 CS down to Froggen. However, he yielded the pressure. He fell behind in lane. This superior wave clear from Froggen allows him to make this move first, roam out, pick himself up 2 kills, and even out the side lanes that were losing and being pressured. So yes, you have even CS, but what does it matter if Froggen is just controlling the game entirely, still staying ahead of you?
Still pumping out that damage onto Cass. They get a hook onto Shook this time.
Black shield.
Prim is going to get out of there. Nif is caught up by the binding, takes some damage, but the tower is still incredibly low. Another mini wave, and they might be able to do it.
Elements with a textbook extended siege composition, double poke, one of each kind. Dexter, however,
goes a little bit deep here. Freeze and Cass, he's trying to juke away from them, but he goes down immediately. Teleport comes a bit late, as Froggen will manage to equalize a kill, but a jungler for support is a poor trade.
Yeah, a bit of a poor mistake from Dexter, overstepping his boundaries, but Elements can definitely lock back in, take the tower.
Equalizer, double flay, into the box. Now Lenny and Soren might be in some trouble. The soldier's going to cover him for just a minute, but Elements, they were looking for blood.
Where the lane swap was lacking, hitting the power spikes, Elements is doing it very well. Level 9 Froggen, level 7 Tabs, even without the Triforce or the Muramana, they just realize that their composition is so much better. They can group up on these towers and see the forward zone control so much. These arrows coming out, rockets coming out, hooks coming out. With the security blanket, that is the equalizer if the Wolves choose to engage. So Elements playing to their strength. They're only 500 gold ahead, but they control the tempo of this match.
They have all the pressure on their side. Froggen at the forefront of it. 100% kill participation, 100% kill share. Got to be careful to avoid the binding potential from Cass, who gets spooked and runs backwards. But at the moment, Elements are holding all the cards, giving up little mistakes after they made just a couple in the very early game.
You know, Elements, they're stabilizing. They have one guy on the top lane, one on the bot lane, so they don't want to make any plays in the mid lane. They got that middle tower. They've got all 3 tier 1 towers, so now they need to start manipulating the waves. Get as much farm as you can and safely. Force the Wolves to overextend in these, what they call very long lanes. However, Tabs found himself overextended a little bit. Yep. You have the Shen delivery system.
And in he goes. There's going to be Tabs trying to get out with a Valkyrie, but way too late. 4 Wolves collapse on him. You know they travel in packs. Why were you that deep?
I feel like Tabs should have just Valkyrie defensively, because that would at least proc an offensive flash from Cass. Whenever you do that as Morgana, you wait for the Valk, then you flash afterwards because you don't want to break your tether, but you have to predict Corki's flash. So Tabs could have either Valk flashed, tried to get out, likely couldn't, or Valked and faked the Valk flash in a sense. And then at least Cass would have dropped a summoner there. Instead he just dies. Yeah, overextending, not using his summoners correctly, not playing the mind games. Tabs 0-2-2, and this is not the Tabs that we saw last year over in Alliance.
Definitely not. He has been having a rougher time of late, but Elements fortunately do have some other weapons, and Froggen pointing a big one right there towards the mid. Will actually store it for just a second. Dexter, JWoww coming around the side. They are starting to group up a little bit. It's 2 minutes out to this next dragon, though. Just looking at some pressure.
Doesn't even need to fire his bow anymore. It just shows how big his arrow just is. The Wolves cower in fear. Because it's starting to hurt right now. Brutalizer finished up. Cooldown boots finished up. This is what Varus wants to do. Obviously, stack that CDR. Arrow after arrow after arrow is what Froggen is looking for. They used to call it the Legolas build when you went BT first. We're stacking that tier. Waiting for that mid-game power spike on the Muramana. Try to time it with the Triforce. And then Siege.
Continually keep the Wolves out of contesting really anything. Skullcrab control has gone the Wolves' way, however. And with the Dragon just about a minute away, Copenhagen Wolves are going to look to try and take another one away from Elements, get themselves a few stats, and be competitive where this mid-game spike that Elements are controlling right now. See if they can fight against it.
And where support experience was a metric to judge how well a lane swap goes, I think, or in my opinion at least, CS of top laners, if it's even, is also a metric. Both of these guys are very low on CS compared to the mid laners and the carries, which means they're afraid of going to the side lanes. They don't feel they have the necessary vision and pressure, which makes for a very small map. Everybody's grouping around each other. They don't have the liberty to farm these side lanes. J1 is sitting on 70 CS, rushing Liandry's. This is very interesting. No, not a double magic penetration build, just straight up building that Liandry's now that it has more base AP and could prove for an earlier power spike. I would argue boots, you might want to get them.
Especially if your teleport's not available yet. You might need to be running pretty soon. That Dragon is pretty close to spawning. We'll have to see with these new changes coming in on patch 5.13. See if that ends up being a good working fit for JWoww, but I agree, not having that boots is definitely going to be a bit of a risk. You see him taking a very slow march down towards this Dragon Pit. Some vision in the back. It's going to get started by Nif and Dexter. There are a few Wolves waiting in the wings, however.
No vision for the Wolves, though. They get the Crying Orb. Scrying Orb, rather. Find Elements, but what are they going to do? They're not poised offensively, and they're not cross-mapping either. This is the sign of a team that's behind strategically. If you have to watch your opponent do the Dragon, and then go for this RNG steal almost, instead of cross-mapping, you know. When a team is doing Dragon, they commit to one area. If you predict that, you can move around the map. Why don't you go into Elements' red jungle, double ward that up, you know, facilitate a push, rotate in the top lane, try and pick somebody else. So many options. Instead, the Wolves, they sit back. They watch Elements take a Dragon, nothing happens. The game stays even.
I've talked in the past about this iteration of the Wolves' coordination issues. And it just seems like they're also lacking in that foresight. Elements, as a result, they still make some mistakes, but they have been able to control this game thus far. 2 Dragons at the 18-minute mark. Slight gold lead for them, and then a slight tower differential. All they need to do is keep controlling these side waves and keep the Wolves howling at their heels. Yeah,
let's take a look at the builds, Pyra. Standard Blade of the Ruined King finished on freeze. He found himself 2 kills so far, though, so he could definitely step up in the carry position. Morellonomicum still finished up on the Azir. Once at CDR. Spam those soldiers. Shook is getting tanky. He's a main initiation tool, which you could do in these compositions. Poke is very weak to flanks and hard engage. It's incredibly hard mechanically to pull it off. However, Shook has shown that he mastered the insect. He just needs to find those flanks. And flanking is easy if you have vision, but this is where the synergy between Shook and Cass, even though they speak the same language, is still pretty non-existent, and you need to work together with your support if you want to facilitate that vision.
It's very important. This is something the Wolves will certainly have to develop very, very soon if they want to keep themselves in the LCS as it stands, still sitting at that bottom of the table. I want to say everyone counts. It's pretty much true of just about every single team that Shook narrowly eats an arrow there. It especially means a lot for the Wolves because they need to keep themselves out of that auto-relegation zone.
Exactly, and while we are fair in critiquing the Wolves, however, this game, they're doing better than usual. They are down 1.6k, 1.7k gold, and if this stays the same until the 20-minute mark, traditionally, they're down 5.2k, so 5,200 gold. That means game over. They still have a fighting chance right now, so this is progression from the Wolves, some synergy in the lineup. Step 1 is taken, but there's a whole lot of steps left for them to take.
And for Elements, at this point, Trinity Force Power Spike, you've got the last Whisper finished up for Froggen. There is a time that they can fight. Let's see if they decide to opt for it. There is still a very slim gold lead ahead, but they're playing it very, very carefully so far.
Yeah, and Dexter needs the assistance of Nif, honestly. They need to start controlling vision, because if you look at what's on the table for Elements right now, all the tier 1 towers are gone. This is where traditionally you can force the Wolves to group and poke them out, get an advantage. The Wolves are not going to group. That means you have to go for tier 2 towers. If you want to do that, you need deeper vision. Your support and your jungler need to be a buddy system right now, because you can leave Corki alone to wave clear from far away. Nif doesn't need to be here. You should counter pressure somewhere else. Imagine if NIF was right now with Dexter. They could dive the mid lane, zone out Soren, and have more wave clear on their side than their opponents do. Instead, they're just defensively reacting to what the Wolves are doing. They're a step behind instead of being a step ahead.
Despite having that lead, yes, they're not throwing their weight around too much. The Wolves, as a result, have an opportunity to try to get closer and even things out further. Soren this time sidestepping away from the piercing arrow. Shook now waiting in the brush to see if anyone checks into it. He will spot Dexter, who places a ward of his own in that river brush. Real Element's very slow to push this one in. They'll take down the Azir turret in the middle.
Azir the builder, build your own base, one turret at a time. Buys himself some time, that's all Soren needs to do. He's on the back foot. Traditionally, this is where the Wolves are. Elements are not showing that they can exploit that. They're going for the even lanes, dragging out the game until they're tanky enough, I guess, to start a Baron bait. That will be the likely logical transition later in the game. They might set up for third dragon, later on Baron, but it's too slow. I feel there are more options right now, especially when you watch these better macro level teams. Watch Fnatic games, HDK in their prime, watch other regions, watch SKT. Obviously, you can't always do what they do because they're just simply better at the game, but take some notes right there and see what they're doing that leads to success. And the number one key after getting these tier 1 towers is vision. Contest jungles, deep jungles. Instead of doing your camps, go to the enemy's camps. Contest the race, deny that smite proc that lets you clear wards. Get to the wolves, deny that spirit that shows you where people are invading. Deny some buffs, make their jungle your own. This is step 1 to snowballing.
Well, they have placed a few wards down, but certainly hasn't been enough for them, and they're not really covering all of their bases here, with Cass able to easily clear away a bit of vision of his own. And with only tabs there to push him back in the bottom side, they can freely farm this one out. This is worrying as the Wolves, I mean, they have a Kalista, they have an Azir. These are 2 late game threats that, while Elements has this mid game power spike, they're not necessarily using it.
Yeah, Elements still have plenty damage late game too because they're running triple carry. Wolves could match that potentially. But the same thing goes for Kaz. He's not grouping. He's been stuck in his bottom lane, helping Freeze farm. Essentially leeching experience. With these wards that he has built up right now, Freeze has triple defensive wards. He doesn't need his support to shadow him or to help him. Kaz could easily roam into the mid lane, join up with Shook, get another deep ward, pressure out Froggen, rotate to the red side, you know, extend these moves together in unison. However, they're hovering for this cheeky bind right here.
Narrowly avoids.
If Tabs is aware, that will never work. These are mechanical outplays. You're trying to outplay your opponents mechanically, but this is not what you need to do in this day and age. Season 2, yes, it works. A whole lot of seasons ahead.
Well, still playing a bit like they're behind. Just a couple seconds left on this next dragon. Elements will try to set up for it, but no vision there as it respawns. Even the Scuttle Crab is still scuttling around. Both teams seem to have forgotten about it. Elements, however, will be the ones to collapse and to force Copenhagen Wolves away, howling yet again. See if they are able to stick around and possibly pull off the steal.
We have to see a fight from the Wolves here, otherwise there's no reason for them to posture with so many members around this dragon. They have the opportunity to move around wherever they want. Elements, they recognize that this is happening, send Froggen back to the mid for initial pressure. However, Wolves are yielding.
Give this one up. They send their bottom lane back to base. A little bit of extra help from Froggen, sends a piercing arrow that way, and this time, Elements will secure that dragon for free.
Yeah, and then look at what Lenny is doing. He pushed up the top lane, but he's basing before it even hits the tower, so they donate a stacked wave to Elements. They don't cross-map, there's no counter objectives, there's no pre-planning. If they time the previous dragon, which they should, because they all stood around watching Elements take that dragon, at 6 minutes, it's not that hard, I've done it before. Then you can orchestrate a play around Elements going for that third dragon and sneak into their jungle, and then when they rotate back into their own jungle, catch them off guard. This is what Giants was doing at the end of the last game, but no pre-planning, no shot calling.
No, they're really not able to come together and make these plays happen. And so while Elements is not playing it out perfectly, far from it, they're definitely still looking like the better team on this one. And the Wolves, they will have to find an answer sooner or later.
However,
they want to stay alive.
Since Cass and Lenny joined, this is the closest game it has been for the Copenhagen Wolves. And that's what they need to do, get experience. Talked about this last week as well. Cass and Lenny are new. They need to play these games, feel what it's like on the stage, and then go home and watch these games with their analysts, with their coach, and adapt and learn from their mistakes. And you can already see that they did that to an extent. A lot more timid on the Wolves. No crazy plays, getting caught off guard. Obviously, Elements is facilitating that with this traditional, very laid-back play. by no means are the Wolves out of this game.
Oh, indeed. They are getting themselves a little bit behind in the Dragon game, but everything else is fairly even. It's only 2 towers to 3. Now that we're 25 minutes into this one, the Hurricane and Blade of the Rune King, of course, had been completed for the Callista. Freeze has also got himself a Vamp Scepter on top. If you can take a look in the mid, where Soren's now working his way towards a third item, a needlessly large rod. A little cheaper. It's been downscaled on this patch. Builds into a lot more things.
And 25 minutes on the board. Baron is on the menu right now for Elements. That's where you want to be with a poke composition. If you can control the vision around an objective, not the objective, like you don't want to start the objective, but you want to give the illusion to the opposing team that you can. This forces a face check. When you see them coming, it's incredibly easy. Very skilled mid laners like Froggen to land that poke, catch them off guard, send out that Varus ultimate, follow up with the equalizer, punish them for contesting these objectives. And that's what Elements is looking to do. They're obviously shown a very slow approach, so they'll be looking for Dragon number 4, Baron number 1, bait the Wolves in, punish the face check, get a gold lead that way, slow and controlled, typical Element style.
They haven't changed in a while. They're certainly not going to start now. Elements definitely don't want to risk getting a loss here. The playoff picture is still incredibly close, especially with Giants losing that game. They're one of the teams still very much in the running, even if they're on the lower end of it.
And I was about to say that we see some synergy from Nif next there with the incredibly well-timed synchronized recall. One of the most beautiful things in League of Legends, sadly. Dexter opts out, sends Nif to the base. So still have to work on that just a little bit.
They almost had it.
They had a great start. They just need the progression.
Just be able to close things out. Speaking of, as they still stack heavily in this mid lane, a couple of Wolves have gone over to clear vision out of the Baron pit.
Yeah.
This is a bit of an oversight from Elements. They didn't have to give that up.
Now JWoww should, in my opinion, already be heading down to the bot lane. Unless Elements wants to force a dive immediately on this mid lane tower. They have about 30 seconds to do it, or a minute, before Lenny's split push threat very obviously will become an issue. They're committing to this. We will likely see a fight here.
Elements still playing a little bit back. The Flame Spitter's on.
Oh, Lenny's flanking.
Onto Soren. Lenny's coming around the back, not using his TP or his Stand United. Shen might actually be a ninja here, but the tower is already gone. So it doesn't matter if they don't see him coming.
Yeah, and instead of trading that tower for pressure on the map, Lenny could have been way up in the bot lane right now. If he walks over and flanks, he leaves this team in a 4v5 anyways, long enough for them to take the tower. If you're going to yield that tower pressure like that, just Lenny, just keep split pushing bottom. Hit on that tower, force JWoww back, and then use your double teleport advantage to make a play. Right now, the Wolves are grouping up underneath the turret against double poke. This is exactly what Elements want.
Goes to show that the Wolves still have a lot to learn here, especially their newer members. Freeze is coming to the rescue to clear out the waves, but 5 members of Elements still stacked on the top. They've got reinforcement, shook around the side, connects the Sonic Wave. Soren is also there. They will need a wombo of a combo to stop this, though.
And it's incredibly hard to flank against the Rek'Sai because she has Tremor Sense. And even if Lee Sin comes over, one knockup can ruin that combo. Dexter just playing zone, zone, zone. Hook goes wide. And Wolves could have gotten punished there, so they dodge potential punish, but there's no comeback mechanic unless Taunt flash into Shuima Shuffle. But Shook is looking for an opening, but Dexter will rarely unburrow unless he absolutely has to.
There's no need at this point. They just continue to chip away, and the Wolves yet again have to yield this pressure. Another Dragon soon to come up. Elements are grabbing objectives just through sheer perseverance. The Wolves are giving it up.
And we just checked, Lenny has done 100 damage to champions in the last 9 minutes. He's been playing on an island. And what has he achieved? He has split pushed the waves correctly, but he stopped halfway. Job half done. Not a job well done. Look at that wave on the bottom. This is what Lenny started 2 minutes ago when I was talking about the split push. It finally hit that wave. JWoww says thank you very much. I could farm these waves 6x6x6, but I prefer my minions come in 30 apiece.
Either way, he gets them.
Gets him.
And yes,
he pushes that out. He pushes that out again. He will initiate another slow push. The Wolves are going for Baron.
Very quick desperation move. This will prompt Elements into action. Teleport pretty far out. Cost a little bit low. Nif gonna send a hook. Lands on Freeze, but he's got the spell shield on. Shook goes in. Equalizer is gonna burn him down. It's Froggen who actually gets the kill credit, and Cost goes down. Lenny, Soren, Freeze all on the back, running away. Nif can't connect a hook. Lenny flashes the wall, but he's out of the fight. Emperor's Divide. Elements will get no more kills, but they easily stop that Baron, and they can start it off themselves.
Yeah, and you were right. Calling it a desperation Baron is exactly what it was for the Wolves. because they ran out of options. They had no split push going, no alternative. They wanted to catch Elements sleeping. Maybe one or two members were in base. JWoww obviously still has his teleport available.
Opens up quite a lot. Elements make a big counterplay. Ping out for Dragon number 4. Should be able to lock it all up. They've got wave pressure in the bottom about even, the top about the same. Once they've got that, though, they can go right back to 1-3-1. It will be a hell of a lot more effective with that Baron buff on for the next 3 minutes.
Yeah, they could do whatever they want. 1-3-1. Honestly, I prefer Elements right now. Having no teleport or flash on JWoww, I would just opt for a 5v0, perhaps 4-1. I don't think splitting up your members all that useful. Shook might go in here though.
Looking for it, see if they can secure it. Not going to be able to take away the Dragon. Secured by Dexter. Fight is on. Koss pulled back. Chains of Corruption onto Lenny. See if they can finish him off. Koss gets thrown back in, only to be burned down and shot through the heart by Froggen. In comes Dexter. Looks for Lenny. He goes in. He goes down. That's a kill to Tabs. 2 for none. Froggen might be blinking, but Elements have got Wolves already on the back foot. Another kill with an equalizer, and Soren is out of the picture.
That equalizer was just straight up dirty. Elements doing their 4th Dragon, forcing the Wolves to come in. Shook couldn't get the steal. Dexter outsmited him. And we talked about this in the opening on the analyst test. Shook versus Dexter. That was the matchup we were going to match. Or watch, rather. And Dexter reigns supreme.
Came out ahead. The mechanical outplays.
Let's watch this again. Don't look at anything in particular, but just look at the zone control from Elements. The Wolves have to walk into that arrow right there. Koss, ulti, gets pulled out. And Varus ulti comes in. Koss goes back into knock up Froggen only to sacrifice himself. No engaged in unison. Lenny says, okay guys, I have a taunt, let's use it. But Dexter is zoning the back line. He just gets knocked in, and there's... the Wolves are not working as a team here. They find themselves into situations that they then want to play themselves out mechanically, but there is no foresight, there is no planning, no shot calling. This is why they're dead last in the league right now, and as the window is closing, the light's shutting out, Wolves are locked in for auto relegation.
It's starting to look that way. Time running out for them. As Elements look to try and push in this one, still with the Baron buff on, with 4 Dragons. Doesn't look like a whole lot can stop them at the moment. The Baron-empowered minions are marching forward. Soren, Shook, Koss, Lenny, Freeze, they're all here. But can they really stop it? Soren goes in, tries a shuffle, only succeeds in absolutely nothing. And Soren on the front after Izanya's burned away. A valiant attempt ends in disaster, and Elements can just wait for another mini wave or not.
The entire Element squad is showing how easy it is to land skill shots, stationary golden target. Bit of a waste, but don't really need it. Elements now looking to close out the first Nexus Tower, not Nexus Tower, Inhibitor Tower. 33 minutes into the game. Very slow. Slow and steady. It's the race, they say.
And haven't given up too much for it either. 2 towers on the game so far, 4 kills. Nif goes forward, immediately point blank hook onto the Shen. Dexter steps a little forward, out of bounds. Freeze punishes him for it, but nonetheless, right back to his team. Easy inhibitor take. They just don't have the punishing power, and the Wolves continue to be pushed in.
Koss just disappeared right there. That inhibitor. Almost take 1. Back to base they go.
He's still taking some damage from Froggen piercing arrows. He is absolutely hurting. Even has himself a Mercurial. Very safe build from Froggen this time. Hasn't been punished whatsoever. 100% kill participation on that too. Froggen, maybe that's about to change if he's caught out a little bit hard. Gets kicked by Shook, but Shook is intent on finishing him off here, and he will get him. There's the shutdown gold. It goes over to Freeze. Meanwhile, the tower is going to fall in the mid. Copenhagen Wolves do manage to get a little bit here. Some misplays by Elements.
Well, that was actually really cool what Freeze did there. Because this Ren range is not that big, but it becomes bigger. Hang on, Soren getting caught here. Let's finish that story right after.
There was a very quick Rek'Sai going right by his left.
So rude, interrupting me all the time. But yeah, he executed the Golem, which was in his range, and that allowed the maximum range slow Ren on Frog and slowed him down enough for the kill. So a good read there by Freeze. He was out of range of the Ren in traditional range on Froggen, but because he procced on a Golem, then the range becomes bigger. Good play by Freeze. Sadly, a little bit late. They're using this opening with Froggen down to maybe get a tower in the base of Elements, though.
They just might do it, though. Still going very far forward. JWoww goes forward with a golden burn. And now the Wolves have to scurry away as fast as they can. Froggen takes a shot onto Cass, gets him down. A double kill as he finds Soren as well. The Wolves, in their desperate attempt to finish an inhibitor, might get aced themselves. Lenny and Freeze on the run. Dexter marching forward at the front. The arrow still hits Lenny, and the chase is still going.
Damn it, Nif with the Superman. Whenever you proc a hook on a black shield, they keep moving, but your tether is still connected. But he pussied out. He flashed defensively. True aggressive support, a bloodthirsty support. Flashed aggressively and slow that Azir down. Eventually he drops though. Copenhagen Wolves are now down 9,000 gold. One inhibitor. Look at that wave in the top though.
Big wave pushing indeed. Elements will have to do this one quick and go back to grab seconds up on the top side. More members here. With the respawn, JWoww, he'll be the one sent to defend the tower. Speaking of towers, that's already gone for Copenhagen Wolves in the middle. Inhibitor should be fired all the way down, but Lenny, Soren, and the rest of the Wolves are here to stop it.
And it's such a terrible task for Shook, honestly, to play Lee Sin into Trash who could play, or not.
Or maybe just go right on forward. He's going to get taken down. Meanwhile, Freeze was able to pick off Nip, but a teleport now coming in for JWoww. Lenny looking for Froggen. He's going to get melted. Kass actually picks the kill up, not before an equalizer drops, and Dexter comes in. A big pushback from the Emperor of Shurima. Elements, what is going on? They've lost 3 for Shook.
This is one of those moments where I was talking about how hard it is for Shook to go in against the Thresh who can flay you out of your Sonic Wave, second proc, or Dexter who can knock you up mid-flight. Any of those would have done. Shook kicks in Nif, who was too late with the flay. And that opened up Froggen to get caught. And then Elements chose to fight it still. Equalizer went wide, get triple taunted, and allow the Wolves to pick up this. This was 5th Dragon. It's a very, very sloppy mistake from Elements. They weren't taking anything in the early to mid game, and now they wanted too much. They wanted mid inhibitor and that big top wave. Right before 5th Dragon.
Got a little antsy in the pantsy, gave themselves up a dragon. Let's take a look at how it happened again, though.
I watched Shook. Normally when you proc this Q, you don't want to go in, because if you respect your opponent, he will cancel you, but knockup comes too late. Still kicks in Nip. Keep your eyes on Froggen right now. He jukes out, but he gets taunted. Morgana ulti slows him down enough. Then there's Fate's Call to knock him in. He doesn't have anything. Equalizer gets stepped out. They choose to fight Lenny. Triple taunt right here. Dexter gets blown up. Has to flash out defensively too, so Elements lose their offensive engages in terms of their flashes. They lose 5th Dragon.
There's a naked inhibitor on the top side, or the bottom side, that the Wolves could eyeball. They need to push back against the super minions in the bottom first to do it. But Elements, they're stacking up around this Baron. They could secure it, however, there's a potential for the counter engage. Lenny got both his teleports available if he chooses to use them, but he's going to have to act fast. Baron
late.
Already at half health. The Wolves will not get here in time. This is going down. Elements managed to get themselves a Baron as the Wolves come late to the party. In comes Freeze, in comes Lenny, in comes Cass, but they're just going to serve themselves up on a plate. That's going to be 1-2 down. Freeze nearly burning as well. The hook doesn't connect on Soren, but man, is it close. Freeze hopping, skipping, jumping as much as he can. Soren tries to get the pushback, but he might sacrifice himself. Goes golden on it as JWoww takes down Shook, and the Wolves have all but fallen as Freeze the only one left. That might be the game right there. In comes Dexter.
The Wolves didn't come to play League of Legends. They're doing sightseeing. This is maybe the 5th objective, that they just stand around, watch it go down. Freeze, he Fates calls his Morgana, which has a black shield to dodge that hook. Then he walks straight into the hook, sacrifices his life. Of course, it's going to be hard for Cass to shield him when you're stuck as a ghost. I mean, that's Fate's call. Misplay on multiple ends by the Wolves, and Elements looking to close out this game.
Should be able to do it just shy of 40 minutes. They make their mid-game fight count. A last stand for the Wolves, but Cass is already burning. Fate's Call pulled back in, but it doesn't matter. When the Nexus is going down, they can't do it. And Elements come up with the win.
And for Elements, critique where critique is due, but they did what they have to do. And their draft was good. And this is something in the season so far. We've had many complaints about Elements, but they came out with a fantastic draft here. Double poke, mixed damage, Rumble in the top lane to facilitate the 80 mid laner Varus, which has incredibly high win rate. In addition to a lot of low pick rate because he gets banned out so often. Corki picked up the Kalista. Kalista neutralized in the early game. These are all positive things for Elements. However, the next step just isn't quite there yet, and they have to watch this VOD. For me, the main thing to work on is the synergy between Dexter and Nif. They need to buddy up, start roaming together. Get that vision out, because Froggen, he played out of his mind. Fantastic game.
Absolutely.
11, 2, and 7.
But you're right. They need to find that extra magic. They need to find that extra synergy. And they need it fast if they want to be able to compete in the playoffs. They're close to qualifying. It's still very close in the middle of the table here. But a win here, definitely important for them. They're going to have a tough game tomorrow. They're going to have Gambit and SK following that.
Yep.
They can't afford to make these kind of mistakes against stronger teams, whether it's the rest of the season, whether it's in the playoffs.
Now we'll have to see. Elements, obviously, coming into this week, given the position they're in, they obviously expected this match to go into their favor against the Wolves. So it is likely that they full-on prepare for Fnatic, watched all their games, analyzed their level 1s, whatever you could do against Fnatic. Pick ban, yeah, you can try, but you won't succeed. So we might see a slightly better Elements tomorrow because obviously all their attention went to Fnatic. It's a hard task, but breaking that streak could be the momentum shift.
Hey, you know, we can see if that's what they've got. I mean, today there was definitely a lot of mistakes against the Wolves. Maybe their head was definitely in another game going on tomorrow. But for the Wolves on their side, they tried to fight. They took advantage of a few mistakes, but in the end, it just wasn't enough. And now, you know, they're going to be relegation bound.
Yeah, there is progression for the Wolves. But they're making those steps that teams were taking at the start of Spring Split.
Yeah.
These teams that are now at the top of the tables, they've been playing for a while. They've been making these mistakes. Like, yeah, we can't do that. Okay, mid-game, group up your support and your jungler. Okay, lane swaps, we play him this way. Lenny, 100 damage to champions in a 10-minute span. It's not what you want, but yeah, back to the drawing board.
We've seen Shens do everything. We've seen Shens do nothing. You know, sometimes
we get the full range of Shen spectrum.
All of them, and there were 2 so far. But yeah, it's definitely tough for the Wolves right now, as they're just been so far behind the pace. But there is some building blocks on the other side. Elements. Great for them to be able to come up with a win here, even if it was full of some mistakes. For now, though, we're going to hear a little bit more about it. Let's send it over stage side, where Pulse is going to have a word with